Another season of Forgotten Horror has come to an end, but as Field paraphrases Al Pacino from Scent of a Woman,
we're just getting warmed up!
Spend the next few months with Forgotten Cinema as Season 7 kicks off with movies from all across the decades. We jump to the 70s to talk about The Front Page, starring Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau.
We dive into the 80s with Michael Mann's Thief and the Dennis Quaid Meg Ryan thriller DOA, and then slice into Butler's childhood years, the 90s, with The Last Samurai and The Negotiator.
That's right, Field. You're old. So very, very old.
Shut up, Butler.
Forgotten Cinema, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family. Hi, I'm Mike.
And I'm Elise.
Hosts of Crackin' One Open with Mike and Elise.
A podcast about brews, news, and pop culture reviews.
Every Friday, we choose a new craft beer from a different brewery and talk about
the history of the beer,
what's in it,
how it was made,
the history of the brewery,
along with tasting notes and more fun facts.
After that, come chill with us as we bring you the latest in pop culture news and reviews.
So check out Crackin' One Open, part of the Forgotten Entertainment family.
Hi, I'm Mike Field.
And I'm Pat Whalen.
Pat is a lifelong comic book geek.
And Mike is a filmmaker and storyteller. So naturally, a bulk of our conversations surround the world of the Marvel movies. Some consider the MCU one of the greatest achievements in modern-day filmmaking, and others just think they're comic book movies. Each episode will tackle one film and discuss the differences between the comic book and what's on screen. We'll explore the growth of the Marvel Cinematic Universe from its inception to present day and beyond, and have a little fun along the way. You may not have asked for it. You certainly don't need it, but you'll be happy we're here. We think. This is yet another MCU podcast.
All right, we are back for our third and final bonus episode that took place between phases 2 and 3. Yeah, so that's it. So next week we will return with we're going to start off our phase 3. It's actually, we're splitting phase 3 into 2 parts. So obviously part 1 and part 2. And part 1 is going to start next week with Captain America Civil War. And we're going to be joined with a guest next week.
We are. It's going to be Paul Santos, the owner of Infinite Heroes Comic Shop, our sponsor in the recommended reading section. So check that episode out next week. Download, subscribe, all that fun stuff.
Yeah. And that's next week. Right now, we're going to talk about a movie that's not necessarily in the MCU, but it is a Marvel movie.
It is a Marvel movie.
We're going to be talking about Big Hero 6. That is a big favorite of my 8-year-old son, who actually had to go out and buy a Baymax, not the big life-size one, but just kind of little mini one that he plays with now. So he's probably not going to listen to this episode, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. So Big Hero 6 came out on November 7th, 2014. At a runtime of 102 minutes. It's rated PG. Production budget of $165 million. Its opening weekend, it did $56 million. Domestic, $222 million. And worldwide, $657 million. Good stuff.
I wanted to point out something there
go
real
ahead.
quick. You said the budget was 165. Remember, that's the magic number that they had to hit on the original one. So they're still right in that in that range, even for the animated movie.
Right. And this is a film that's partially owned by Pixar and Marvel together. So yes. Marvel is a part of it, and they have the logo on the front. Do they have the Pages logo that they usually have in front of all the...
I don't remember because they redesigned the logo a couple times. Mm-hmm. I think it's just the red logo with the white lettering, and then they do the Disney logo as well.
Right.
Disney-Pixar logo.
Now, you don't have many of the people that were behind this. They're not in, or they're not part of a lot of the MCU movies. They're mainly animators and stuff like that who do animation films. You got Don Hall and Chris Williams who directed, and they both did Moana. You had written by the guy who wrote March of the Penguins, Jordan Roberts. A couple of people who did Monsters University, Monsters Inc. The only person that is actually a part of this movie that is done other movies is Henry Jackman, composed the music for this. Right. And he did Civil War, which you'll hear about us talking about Henry Jackman next week. I think we talk about it. And that's it. So you have no crossover there in terms of people behind the scenes being part of the MCU and this. So this is going to be a short one. We're not going to kind of give it the full treatment that we do the MCU movies, but we will definitely start talking about some differences between the comic and the movie. Since obviously already there's no place in the MCU,
right?
We'll skip past that.
There's a couple moments that we could could hit on there, but yeah, there's not
Right.
a lot of full
Right.
MCU connections. There's no Tony Stark popping up in this one.
Well, do you like this movie?
I do like this movie. I
this
like this movie a
is an
lot.
Oscar winner. It won the
I knew that.
it won the best animation feature Oscar. 2000. Well, this came up 14, so it was the 2015 Oscars. So this is and it is a very good movie. It's got a lot of heart. It's got a lot of fun action, fun moments. There's some stuff that is, I could do without T.J. Miller sometimes, but
It's soaking the rest of Hollywood at this point.
Ooh, regardless. So there is some things that you're just kind of like, but it's for kids. But I was surprised. One of the things that I was surprised at with this, well, actually, you know what? Why don't you, for people who don't know what Big Hero 6 is about, I don't know if you want to break it down real quick. I mean, I can, but I'll stumble through it.
Yeah, so Big Hero 6, obviously we talked about it. It's primarily more kid-focused movie. It's about a young man, boy genius hero, who goes to university at an early age. At the same time, his brother gets killed in an accident in the lab. In order to deal with his grief, he opens up his brother's science project, which is Baymax, a healthcare providing robot. And through some science shenanigans, they turn him into a superhero fighting robot, and he partners with all of Hero's brother's friends, and they form this team, Big Hero 6. And throughout the movie, they try to solve the mystery of who is stealing these nanobots,
right,
and wreaking havoc around town.
They don't give that guy a name, right? I just always known him as the guy in the kabuki mask.
They don't give him the name until they reveal who he is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think they just call him Kabuki Mask Guy.
Right.
And so, eventually you learn who the villain is. It's structured very much like a Scooby-Doo mystery movie.
Yep.
There's some red herrings in there. And then, of course, the bad guy would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for these meddling superhero kids.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so it's a really fun movie. Really, it's a short, quick, animated one, but it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Animation is really solid, and it's a good watch.
It's sounds like it takes place in the future. It does. It takes place in 2032, which is not far off. But it's not really a future from the present that we're in. It's a future from an alternate present where during the 1906 earthquake, San Francisco was rebuilt by Japanese immigrants using techniques to allow for movement and flexibility in seismic events. And then because it was called San Fransokyo, I think I said that right.
Yes.
Because it's a combination between the architecture of American and Japanese. That's according to the art director of Scott Watanabe. So while it is in the future, it's not really our future.
Right. But the world building that they do, I think, in setting up that San Fransokyo, that mix of Japanese and San Francisco cultures, and you have the air blimps coming in, and there's a lot of really fun science stuff that has helped develop this town. And you get the sense that, this stuff can happen within the world that they've built.
Well, it's also a world that puts a higher commodity on emerging technology than, self-interest, which, well, let's be honest, I think we'd all like moving forward. I mean, I don't get why we ever got away from that, but regardless,
yet another political podcast.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I like the furthering of our species as a people
through science.
Exactly. It's just more exciting. Because I enjoy this movie as well, and I don't want to really go too deep until what about this part? Well, this part, but I do want to, before we start talking about differences, I do want to talk about the Stan Lee cameo.
Okay.
Because of course it's in there.
It is.
So there's a character in this, Fred, who's played by T.J. Miller, and he's kind of like a rich kid who is
he's a goofball.
He is. He's a goofball rich kid who I don't even know if he's smart. He's just a rich kid.
He hangs around with all the smart kids.
Yeah.
At first you think he has no money. He talks about how he wears his underwear inside, outside, inside again. And you think, and then they roll up to this giant mansion, and they're like, "What are we doing here?" He's like, "Oh, I live here." And they're like, "No, we can't go in here." It's a great little moment, but then we get in there, and you're like, "Okay."
Yeah. So you see a portrait on the wall, and it's his father is. They don't say who his name is. It's Stanley. It's his likeness. And then there's a after credit scene or mid credit scene where Fred is like talking to the portrait, and he pushes on it, and then it opens up a room where I guess his father appears in Stan Lee, and you get the idea that Stan Lee is a superhero of some sort, and
secret agent, spy type thing,
something to do with something like that, and he repeats the underwear line to Fred that that Pat just talked about. and that was it. So did you like that? The cameo?
I didn't really care. I thought I didn't need the after credit sequence.
I'm not surprised because I was surprised that they didn't do a second movie, but it is a show on Disney. Well, it's on Disney Plus now, but there's a show that on Disney it's popular. So I think that's what happened.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to bring up. One of our Instagram followers, you could follow him at Arguing with Myself. He pointed that out that we wanted and I agree with him. Would have liked to see a proper sequel to this. Just they set up the Stan Lee secret agent thing, and even with Stan Lee's passing, you could still make it Fred's dad is missing.
Yeah.
And they have to go track him down or something. But I haven't watched the Big Hero 6 show. Have you?
No, I have not, but I know that my son has. So I've seen him, but I've never really watched it. It's a different style of animation,
right.
Number one. I think some of the voices have returned, but not all of them.
It'd be hard to get some of like Maya Rudolph. I doubt would have come back as.
But I know Scott Adsit, who plays Baymax, I think the two leads are the same.
Okay.
But I think everybody else. I want to say that the woman who plays Honey Lemon, I think she is on the show as well. So there are some crossovers. But to be fair, a lot of the people that are voices in the movie are professional voice actors. So
right.
They're not.
And it's a deep cast.
Yeah.
Like we said, we had T.J. Miller, Maya Rudolph's in there, Alan Tudyk is in there. Jamie Chung and Damon Wayans is,
I think Tudyk's in the show too.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he plays the rival who they kind of hint at that he might be the bad guy.
Right.
But then you find out that he's not the bad guy.
Right.
All right. So
I want to just.
Oh, go ahead. Go.
Just to give another shout out to one of our followers on Instagram. And if you guys have comments, want to send in your thoughts on the future movies, please, send us a message there. But a good buddy of mine, Joe, you can follow his cosplay adventures at Son of Rust Studios. He pointed out that they showed an accurate depiction of loss and grief in a kid's movie. And it wasn't just, between the loss of Hero's brother, and they already had started the movie where the two brothers were orphans, essentially living with their aunt. So, and you see that with the relationship with Baymax and Hero. So I think that was a nice inclusion, and they didn't just sugarcoat it and say, like we've seen in some of the other Iron Man movies, you're a mechanic, you fix things, get over your feeling. In this one, they actually had, Hero in a state of depression, working his way out, making friends, getting to understand what was actually causing it. And I think that was it's a subtle, it's the whole point of the movie, but they do it in a subtle way.
Well, it's Pixar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's Pixar in a nutshell. They kind of, they've already shown that they can do that in terms of like emotion and drawing characters well, not drawing in terms of actually physically drawing. I mean drawing like showing them emotionally, and they do that with Inside Out as well, because that deals with a girl kind of going through a change and having to move and stuff like that. So no, that's not that that's a great point, but it's like my is like they always do that. So that's what you expect now when you watch a movie like that, and they do it well, and it's got a nice ending. Pixar movies always end like well. I don't know what it is, but they always have like even like Monsters Inc. like how that at the ending of that when the door opens, like this, and obviously when Baymax recognizes he because Baymax gets wiped out or the chip gets
lost.
Yeah, and then when he shoots the Baymax that he is with, his version is in the porthole, and then he gives him the hand and it fires him. But when he opens up the hand, he realizes it has his I guess
memory chip.
Yeah, right.
So that there's a piece where they head into an alternate dimension type thing.
An alternate dimension.
Can we get that into future movies? But okay, is this the way to get the Big Hero 6 team into the MCU proper? But yeah. So
what earth are they on?
You kind of know as the viewer what's going to happen. But even then, it still hits home, and it's still emotional when it does happen, and you see that glimmer of hope in Hero's eyes. And so when he builds Baymax back up, it's reflective of when his brother was building and testing him.
Right.
So it's a nice come full circle with the two characters. And, even though Hero loses Baymax like he had with his brother and his parents, he is able to, put that aside and work with his friends and kind of put it all together again.
Right. So as a segue to the differences, Unless you had anything else.
No, that's it.
I wanted to ask you about one of my notes because I don't know if it's I don't know if this note is about a comic or it's about a TV show or whatever, but that the film shares similarities with the 80s Marvel title Spitfire and the Troubleshooters.
I have no idea what Spitfire.
Oh my God. You are the whole, I don't understand. I don't know if you understand this, Pat, but the whole point of this podcast is that you are supposed to bring all the Marvel comic knowledge with you, and I do not.
I'm going to tell you what it is right now.
Go for it.
So we'll just cut out all the other stuff.
Well, I don't know if I will do that, but all right.
No, Spitfire and the Troubleshooters. It was a comic from the late 80s. Only ran 13 issues. I guess they've put in pieces of it in later comics here and there since then. But yeah, there's a big red armored, more alien creature than anything. But he's kind of the big, bulky, kind of Baymax looking character. So yeah,
so in the original Big Hero 6 comic, Baymax, in terms of wearing that armor, it does not exist.
Not that armor specifically. So in to give you some background on the Big Hero 6 team, they've really only been in maybe at most 30 issues total. They've headlined, I think, 2 series, and one of which has 5 issues. The other one had 3. So they're not a popular group, and for whatever reason, Marvel hasn't done a lot with them. When we talk about other characters, Iron Man, Captain America, I think Captain America is in like 40 issues a year.
Okay,
and so that hopefully puts that a little bit into perspective. But the first Big Hero 6 team essentially is to use a comparison that we might all know is almost like the Japanese Suicide Squad. So the first team had a Silver Samurai, who was a Wolverine villain antagonist / he was a bodyguard for some Hydra agents. And so he led the team. There was another character called Sunfire. He was a mutant from Japan, and he was able to kind of absorb radiation. So think atomic bombs.
Right.
And then you had Honey Lemon, who was the gadget, inventor person, and Go-Go Tamago, who was Jamie Chung's character in this film.
She's the
one with the wheels.
Bike. Yeah.
Yep. And so there's a change with hers because when she kind of shouts out her name, she almost like surrounds herself in like a fiery blast and can shoot at other people.
Okay.
But she was in prison when she was 18, and they said, if you go and join this team, we'll commend your or whatever,
expunge your record.
Commute your sentence there. So it's a little bit more Suicide Squad than anything. And Hero later joins when I think it was his mother who got kidnapped by the antagonist of the original series, and he builds Baymax, and Baymax is a robot similar to the one that we have here. Well, more robot-esque than the big, jelly healthcare provider guy. But his, he essentially puts a suit on that's makes him look like a kaiju, a Godzilla character.
Okay. Now, so there was no brother. There was no Tadashi.
No Tadashi.
So they couldn't use Silver Samurai or Sunfire because Fox owns them.
That's what I was going to ask you. Because I wasn't sure. I mean, I don't think they'd really fit into this story anyway.
Well,
maybe make Silver Samurai the bad guy, but yeah, I think this is at the time when Fox owned everything.
Well, now that Disney owns Fox, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Does it? Does it?
Nope. I think Silver Samurai makes an appearance in one of the later Wolverine movies. Might just be.
Is that the one where he's in Japan?
Yes.
I've not. What's funny is I remember some stuff for that movie, but like I have blocked out that movie. I did not. I remember when he fights the big metal guy. Right?
That might have been
their
him? Interpretation. I don't remember. I same thing.
I remember the scene where he's walking through the town and they keep shooting him with grapple hooks or something, and then like they're holding him and he's just they keep trying to walk. Yeah, that kind of thing. I remember that. Yeah, that's about it though.
Yeah, I saw that movie come out and just like the last couple ones have not been good. And then
none of the
Old Man Wolverine came out or whatever. Or Logan came out.
Old Man Wolverine.
Well, it's based on the comic Old Man Logan.
Oh, okay.
That's why
all right.
I said it, but
so Fred's original power in the comic, and this is the TJ Miller character, the goofball rich kid, was in the movie. Hero builds him a suit that breathes fire.
Yes.
In the comic, he actually had the ability to transform into a huge monster.
Yeah, and I this is where as far as I can tell, Fred was introduced in the 2008 kind of revitalization of the characters, the one that I was showing you the comics for earlier. They introduced Fred and they introduced Wasabi. Wasabi is very similar. He could throw, energy daggers. So, that's the same thing. He was a not a hibachi chef, but like a sushi chef.
Okay.
So he was able to use him.
He wasn't. You mean he didn't make the onion volcano?
He did not make the onion volcano. Okay. But with Fred, and this is where I was a little confused, and maybe it was just with the art with the comics. It looked to me where he could project this image of like a kaiju monster, and he didn't necessarily turn into it. So,
right.
But yes, to your point, he doesn't wear a suit. It's either him or like a mental projection of the monster itself.
Right. Well, staying with Fred, I guess they had two like callbacks to comic villains in his room, or comic, I don't know, comic characters. They had there's two mannequins in his room. One of Orca, I guess, who was the Submariner, right? Submariner. What is
Submariner?
Submariner villain?
Namor, the Submariners.
And then Black Talon.
Yeah.
Do you know of those?
No, and the reason I don't, I looked them up when you asked me about them
because I'm an adult,
earlier.
Mike.
So Orca has the power of an orca whale.
I figured it had something to do with that.
They're spelled with a K. There's a couple other, oddly enough, there's like a handful of villains with orca whale powers.
Really?
Whether it's in Marvel or DC.
Can they jump over the barrier between the bay and the ocean, like in Free Willy?
I think they could do a little bit more than that, but that was the only thing that was separating that one whale from freedom.
Yes.
But these characters were like, they're so obscure. They barely make an appearance ever again. And they were most notably found in like 70s comics.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, as far as I can tell, they haven't made an appearance since. And I think this is just somebody on the staff who was really in love with Marvel Comics. Like, these characters are never going to be used in a MCU movie ever.
Does the name Torpedo ring a bell to you?
No.
Okay, because there's a statue of Torpedo in Fred's room as well, and that's supposed to be a Daredevil villain. So you don't know that either.
Let me see.
Welcome to Big Hero 6 or Stumping Pat. So while we're on the topic of villains, there were going to be more villains in this movie, and I'm going to list them off, and I don't know if these people they made them up, or these villains are from the comics or whatever. So they had the Fujitas, Mr. Sparkles, and the Banzai Bombers. None of those are in the comics?
I don't think so.
See, this movie is a lot of just, we're going to do whatever we want.
And I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
I like that they were willing to, and I think the Banzai Bombers, looking them up earlier too, they might make an appearance in the animated show.
Oh, okay.
So they may have taken that concept and just said, let's, we got these characters, let's shift them off to the show.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but no, as as far as I can tell, I don't know those characters in the comics. This one was, like we pointed out with the last three, somebody just went back into the annals of the comics and was like, these characters are never going to be adapted. Let's put a nice Easter egg in here. If I'm wrong and they make that Namor movie and they put in Orca, so be it. But I think it's just more of a, let's see how many Easter eggs we could pump in there. And let's have fun because we have to animate it and just make it look cool.
Makes sense.
And it adds to Fred's kind of obsession with superheroes that he has these because they are superhero looking costumes. They're a little absurd. They're really unrecognizable to the regular viewer.
And they're not, none of the costumes really are comic related, right? They're all just, okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So, this is a straight up kids film, and that's fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. It does take place in the MCU, but I think we're all assuming it takes place in some kind of other Earth. What's the Earth that the MCU universe is on?
616.
616. Okay, so this is probably on 615.
Doesn't work that way, but okay.
Listen, well, what does it work like? Tell me.
Oh, it's just random numbers.
So then I made a random number, 615.
Okay.
All right. So obviously this is in an alternate universe, and maybe Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield will be in this one at some point as well. I'm referring to the Spider-Man stuff. All right. So, that's it. I mean, you want to add anything else?
Yeah, I did. Just
I'm
because,
done talking about Big Hero 6.
This was a weird one because it's their only animated Marvel movie, and there was supposed to be a handful of other ones. And one of them.
Well, I mean, however long this pandemic keeps going, maybe there'll be more.
I know they should just start making them now.
Agreed.
But to give you some background, and I looked up the director on this one. There's not much of the comic books, so he just came out and said, I like the name, and decided to develop a film around the name. So he didn't really do anything with it. I think this is one of those things that fans were worried about would happen to Marvel once Disney took over, is it would just be like kiddie fare
right
all the time. But clearly this is a lot of beats for adults to enjoy as well. It is a film targeted at kids. We know that.
Why would fans of Marvel be worried about what Disney's gonna do? Marvel is like pretty much.
They thought they were going to turn them all into like PG kind of High School Musical.
I think PG-13 is the new PG from the 80s.
Oh, absolutely.
Come on, let's be real. They should be more worried about what Disney's doing to Star Wars.
Right. And so, in addition to this film, there was talks they were going to get another film, and that was the Power Pack, which I think we had mentioned in a previous episode. It's a group of preteen superheroes. Their last name being Power. They all have different superpowers, and they hang out with Franklin Richards, the son of Reed and Sue Richards of the Fantastic Four.
Nice.
And so there was a 90s live action show with that, but it was kind of bad.
Okay.
But there was a lot of like.
Is that like the Thundermans? I've watched that.
I don't know.
That's on Nickelodeon.
Probably.
It's a family. It's not great. It's for kids.
Probably.
It's not. It's for kids.
But the Power Pack show never materialized. There were rumors. There was talks that it was coming, and it just
never came up.
Came up. But then we got this one, and I think this is, not having any real comic ties other than the name and a handful of like superpowers.
Yeah.
And things like that. I think this is a really good adaptation.
It's a good movie.
Yeah,
it's a good kids movie, and obviously it's has the accolade of the best animated feature of the year, so it's well worth it. I just imagine the big board, the big board at Marvel headquarters, and they've got all their MCU movies in one section, and then to the left there's like there's like alternate universe, and it's probably over there somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to add one other thing, because we talked about the comics, that there's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
And if you want a comic that's very similar to this movie, you're not going to find it. Not published by Marvel anyway. So Marvel sold the licensing rights to a publisher called IDW. IDW has licensing rights for G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Really good, really great Ninja Turtle series. But that's not the show we're doing right now. They have only released one issue so far, but it's Big Hero 6, the series. So it's based on the characters and designs of this movie and the animated show. If that's what you want to check out, that's really the only recommended reading I could give you. Go give Paul and Infinite Heroes a call, put it on your pull list, and follow it on a monthly basis. But that's the other ones are just these limited series that are not the same. Not the same thing.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good.
That's
all right, so we will return next week we're going to be jumping back into our. I don't know our big. No, I know, but I'm trying to figure like what are these are bonus episodes, and those are what the main episodes. I'm just trying to give it a name for it. All right, so do that. So we'll return next week. We'll actually be talking with Paul Sanchez. We recorded that at Infinite Heroes, so we were actually on location for that shoot. So that was fun. We had a good time, and it's going to be a longer episode, FYI. So because we get into a lot of the stuff with Paul's work and. Just like the comic world and just everything around Civil War and just this is the first episode where I actually read the comic before going in.
Yes,
so so there was a lot of me knowing stuff already and seeing the differences. So it's a little bit of a take, but that's the only time we did that. So that's next week, Captain America Civil War. Thanks for listening to our bonus episode about Big Hero 6. Pat, you got anything to add?
Thank you. And as always, if you like this podcast, rate us wherever you're listening, subscribe, and share with your friends.
All right. We'll see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Take care.